podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Burek, your host, here with A.W. Schultz, two thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Burek and A.W. Schultz.
Well, welcome to another episode of Factory of the Future. And today we're going to be talking about the business transformation report that was pulled together by Graphite. Now, this report came to me, it's more recently, it came out in 2025, but it was compiled in 2024. And it's about 180 plus executives that were asked about where they see change going in the environment or into their organizations. Now, you might ask yourself, what is transformation and what is OPEX or operational excellence? Now, operational excellence, and we'll go into some of the data, Alexandria will take us through that, is about how you administer change, how you things make things better, identifying where things need to be improved. And a couple of areas that a lot of these executives look at is one is change management. Now, not to get too much into the woods on this, but change management is kind of a lower tier more than transformation. Transformation is the whole organization. Change management is different pockets of it. But also they look at within operational excellence, using advisory consultants, the idea of lean, and another project management term is how to become agile. But with that, we're going to be looking at some of the data that supports it, what we see as the future on it, and a little bit what we have seen down the pipelines. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Alexandria, and she's going to take us through some of the interesting facts.
Thanks, A.W. Yeah, great introduction. I mean, who doesn't love operational excellence? I mean, it's kind of my favorite. I genuinely mean this.
A lot of people.
so nerdy. Like, you know what? Honestly, I think this era of my life is like just leaning fully into being a corporate girly. When people ask me, they're like, what are you? I'm like, I'm a corporate girly. That's what I am. That's what I do. And it just makes it easier for me to explain kind of who I am and what I'm about. But yes, I absolutely love operational excellence. So AW is amazing. I just want the audience to know, like, this guy is like every bit of a professional, and he like prepares all these amazing notes and stats and kind of like choreographs these episodes for us. And I kind of come in with like my freewheeling attitude and personality and spice it all up and throw them curveballs throughout the episode. So we're changing seats today. So I am supposed to be the studious reporter of the facts. And here we go. Buckle up, you guys. I've selected two of the facts that I really thought were interesting out of the many that AW had to select from. So first, I want to talk about 58% of businesses discussing AI projects, but not implementing them yet. So my question there is why? Okay, I have a couple of suspicions on why businesses are talking about it, but not taking action. So number one, everyone's sketched out by AI. There's a lot of even the people who like using it. Like, I love using it. I support it. I think you're either going to use it and be on the forefront, or you're going to be behind the times and you're going to be like a loser who's using obsolete technology, and you're not going to fit into the marketplace, and you're not going to be, where you need to be. That said, I'm still aware of the fact that people are questioning what role AI plays. Is it reliable yet? Is it safe truly? Like, if we think about some of the other episodes we've talked about ammunition, I would be a little concerned about like just trusting AI on that. Joe Rogan and Mark Zuckerberg were talking about what's the best like version of software or technology, and they say usually you shouldn't even base your opinion on anything sooner than the third generation, because the first generation is kind of like what it sounds like. The second generation is okay, we're working things out, we're getting a little better, but like the third generation is really the generation that like we're kind of getting groovy now. Now we're comfortable. For a podcast, it's typically the third year that they start making money, really growing traction and doing these things, according to ChatGPT anyway. But AI, so I think there's a little bit of hesitation on over implementing it when we don't know if it's quite there yet for our businesses. The second stat that he put together that I really found interesting was 48% of companies are deploying enterprise-wide transformation, which is up from 37% in 2023. So what I really love about what AW brought up here is change management is focused on pockets of the organization. Transformation is the whole, is the organization in a whole. And where I see companies lacking significantly is in the GRC space. So governance, risk, and compliance space. I'm newly acquainted with a colleague who has recently educated me on this major gap that IBM and other kind of tech implementation firms are doubling down on into, filling this gap and this need that these companies have. So I see a lot of this enterprise-wide transformation being central to the gaps around their governance, risk, and compliance. AW, what do you have to say or think about those things that I shared, and anything else for the matter that's come to mind as I'm talking?
Two things I want to touch on. One is I'll get back to the ESG part, but talking about AI, I heard a interesting quote, and it was from Daniel Burris. He does technology and hard trends for the future, and he's got the top 25 trends, and he's got a long history of success on it. And he was asked the question about, is AI going to take over? And his answer was yes. Because people that use AI will outdo the people that are not using AI.
Oh, yeah. That's a general census altogether. I so double down on that with you.
And he gives another example about just person with AI, person without AI.
Yeah.
30 seconds, you have your answers. But you're only getting about 80% there. You still need that human touch on it.
The drive and ambition as well, yeah.
The ESG part.
GRC. I was talking about GRC, not ESG, but I agree on the ESG part too.
Okay. Sorry, I had ESG in my head.
Yeah. No, I knew you did, because ESG is so tied to Industry 5.0. But honestly, share with the audience what you're thinking, because I don't think you're wrong. I think when we're talking about enterprise-wide transformation, I think GRC, so governance, risk, and compliance, is going to play a huge role. But I also think you're right in the ESG portion. So let's hear your side of it with that.
Yeah, ESG, environmental,
social
governments. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
And what I guess comes to me is that if you're in the United States, you probably haven't seen a whole lot of it going on. But if you start talking about some of the work that's going on in India and Europe, it's being taken very seriously, and they're tracking it very well. And especially when I talk about Industry 5.0, a lot of the data I'm pulling together is from what's going on in Europe. So that's where I'm seeing is kind of a trend on it. And just in my background, not really throwing a lot of data on it, I see a lot of what trends start over on the other side of the ocean.
Yeah,
so that's what's going through my mind.
I have a quick question or a comment on that. So maybe for the audience not knowing, we really truly have a worldwide audience, like people across the globe, across multiple continents, tune in and listen to the show. So thank you guys to the listeners out there. We appreciate you, and hopefully share the show if you like the show. And like the show, rate the show, all the things with the show. But we have a worldwide audience. AW is world class, and literally he's in Africa, he's over wherever you going, Australia, he's just all over the place helping companies with this stuff. So Americans being maybe less familiar, we all know what ESG is, and I was kind of surprised because I feel like Americans are a little bit extra when it comes to that stuff. But I guess my perspective is a little small because I really am not out doing business in the global economy. So can you tell us, maybe in a quick couple of points, what you think Americans are going to be focused on from an ESG standpoint? Like, where do you see this? Because I think about Denmark and Norway, and I'm hearing things about Hungary. Like in Hungary, women who have kids, they start out paying 100% tax. And now, if they have one kid, they get a 25% reduction for life. If they have 4 kids, they never pay income tax for the rest of their life in Hungary, because the fertility and the child whatever is so low. So what are you thinking about when you're thinking about ESG coming to the US?
One of the things so I'm trying to compare it to your analogy. I was thinking manufacturing side of it.
I'm very pro mommy. I'm very I'm in my maternal era here. We're not only corporate girly, but we're preparing to be a mom for anybody who's curious. But yeah.
What I had in mind is where the U.S. is going to start seeing the push for that is
Hey, take it easy.
is maybe not so much in the governance side, but in the need to show the consumer, and particularly one of the areas is, we all know ISO, right?
Oh yeah, ISO certification
ISO 55000 is about regulatory and some of the environmental aspects of it, of particularly how you're managing your assets.
Yeah.
And that to me is where the pushes are going to be starting to come. And probably we won't see it for the next couple terms within presidency, but it eventually, if the government's not going to do it, some of the other organizations are going to have to push to it if they want to stay competitive and be seen in the light of a customer as being everyone wants to feel that they're working
best in class. Yeah.
Best in class. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that was a really interesting take. I love how different our minds work and our different perspectives. I think it makes a really well-rounded show. So what you're saying is you see the ISO standard as becoming the minimum in the next 10 years.
I didn't say 10 years, but yeah, let's say 10 years.
Okay. So just, that was an arbitrary number, but I knew it wasn't coming up in the next 2 years. You said a couple of presidencies. So I figured 10 years sounds about right. Me, very, very factual.
Put the facts on that. Let's write it down. He said
it. Yeah. Okay. That's really cool. So and even when I think of ESG, the ISO certification and ISO conversation would never even cross my mind. I'm thinking of again, things like environmental. So obviously, what are we doing to make sure that we're reducing our carbon footprint? That's key. If I think of ESG, I think of environmental, reducing carbon footprint, and improving sustainability. When I think of the social, I think of making sure that we have systems in place to not discriminate, to not overly do bias and all the other stuff. But I also think about, more maternity leave. I really do. I'm going to hit that hard because a lot of my friends are new moms with kids under 2. And frankly, it's been disheartening and kind of heartbreaking to see that their husbands can't take more than 2 weeks to be with their newborn child. That's kind of heartbreaking. You're a dad, I think the dad should have that time as well to bond. And I know that other countries are far more advanced in their minimum standards for parents and for parenting. And I see that as being crucial to the social piece, besides just kind of the baseline of equality. And then when we talk about governance, which honestly, I'm just wondering when they're going to make this ESG merge with GRC, so the governance, risk, and compliance piece. It should just be all put together as one long acronym. But the governance piece, I think, is where those two concepts and ideas overlap. So I guess bringing it back to operational excellence, bringing it back to transformation, I still think that corporations have a long ways to go. And I think that the corporations that will excel, actually, I'm reading a book about this. Have you ever read Power versus Force? Have you ever heard of it?
I have never heard of it.
Okay. Actually, I think you would like it. And it's very physics oriented. So it's all about kinesiology and physics, and there's a lot of M fields and this really sciencey stuff, very technical sciencey stuff, which typically is not my lane, but I'm enjoying it, and it's really kind of opening my eyes to some things out there. But what I was trying to mention with this Power versus Force book is that there's a part that I was reading last night talking about companies that try to exert force, which is kind of a negative. Countries, anybody trying to exert force is from a low vibrational standpoint, and power is from a high vibrational standpoint. It's putting good out. So an example that they gave of power versus force is companies that work with power, they put their employees first. They don't try to penny pinch on employees. And they gave an example of Walmart and how Walmart's corner, like they pay to have more people on the floor that are happy to greet you, and they want to treat you with a family atmosphere, and they want to put places for you to sit and decide whether you're going to buy the things. And that's all coming from a place of power, where there's other companies that miserably end up failing and go bankrupt because they didn't want to pay to have cashiers, and it cost them literally the entire company. So those are some of the things I think about when I think about transformation, and I think about how that blends in with the Industry 5.0 topic we love to talk about, and how, how I really do see the future of companies playing out. And I'm just going to keep saying it until it's actually true. A manager and I were talking, senior leader of our company, and I were talking about that. And, I was just trying to encourage him and say that the way that he manages and the way that he approaches business should be the way that all leaders approach business, because it's focused, but it's also heartfelt. And there's like a human element to his approach.
One other thing on that graphite study is they had on here, what is the top programs that they see in the next 12 months.
Okay.
Now it's leading by, I'm just going to go over the first couple, is AI, and was for 47%. Digital transformation, putting all that stuff in there, using the technologies we have. Mm-hmm. Business iteration and data analysis, workflow automation.
Yep.
But I'm have to go to number 5 when I talk about cultural transformation. And I would argue that I think that should be circled right up around number 1.
Yeah.
Before you start talking about, even we're big pro AI, but I think that you need a culture first before you start introduction just to, hey, talk to ChatGPT. Wait for that answer.
Yeah. I mean, even if companies started with just saying, like, okay, so we talked a little bit about AI. That was one of my interesting topics or interesting stats to bring to the table based on what we had there. Maybe if companies just started, like, one way that they could ease the employee's mind around using AI is, like we talk about all the time, using it in conjunction with leveraging AI to make you better at your job. Like, what if people just started using AI to triage their inbox? What if people just started using AI to optimize their schedules? What if people just started using AI to do these repetitive blah jobs that we talked about recently? I mean, what was really interesting, and I don't know if I loved it or hated it, I was just like, oh, that's really interesting, I can't decide if I'm for it or against it, was Mark Zuckerberg talking about eventually in the future us having like AI coworkers. Yeah. Like there's going to be AI coworkers of ours that are just like, oh, they're just bots that we work with. I mean, it's kind of cool. It's kind of scary, but it's kind of cool.
Can't ChatGPT do that for you now? You can just vent on that piece of a machine, and it'll give you a response back and give you some opinions.
I think what he was talking about is a lot more technical. So like it would be building an AI bot that can actually do senior technical work. So like actually writing code and like being able to act. Like that's what he was talking about, a lot of it. Like the next version of AI that they're working on that's not available yet. Like right now, I guess the way he described it was ChatGPT or current AI models are like a 1-for-1. So you ask it something, it gives you one answer. But what they're working on now, which takes a lot more compute and takes a lot more development, is like they would think about 1,000 scenarios and say, well, if I say this, then this, and that, then this, and that. And it allows them to provide a much better, more sophisticated answer and response compared to the ask, what color is the sky? The sky is blue. What's the 7 continents? Names the 7 continents or whatever, But I find that really interesting. And I think that's where the AI bot as a coworker comes in, is when they get to that level where they've built these models. And these models are able to consider more than 1,000 scenarios in the matter of minutes. And then that talks about quantum computing. Have you heard anything about that yet? Quantum computers?
I've heard the term for several years.
Yeah, so it's not that new. But these computers are essentially, it's like leveraging. So like my computer that I'm on has the power of my computer. Your computer that you're on has the power of your computer. But through quantum entanglement and quantum physics, basically, we could link our computers, and then irrespective of the distance, because obviously we're states apart, our computers would be entangled such that they were leveraging the power of both devices. So like if I've got 16 gigs of RAM and you've got 16 gigs of RAM, that would equate to like us having 32 gigs of RAM once we quantum entangle our computers.
Okay.
And they're doing this with multiple computers. IBM is doing this with multiple computers. And these computers are like wild. Like I don't even know where to begin on, and I don't know enough about it to be able to that intelligently speak. But so these quantum computers are going to work with AI, and the computing ability is just exponential compared to what's available today, is like the summary of that.
Wow, that's exciting.
It is exciting. It is exciting. So hopefully those computers can solve all those problems that we're talking about in past episodes. You know, they can figure out how to design the robots that fill the factories that make the ammunition.
Yeah. When you start talking about that, I start thinking about the different scenarios. So you're talking about risk, right?
Yeah.
And the digital twin is not a new component out there, but often when I talk about the digital twin, it's about maintenance reliability, but it also can be tied to business and organizations and understanding the risks of your suppliers or your competitors. So that's a lot more too. It can with the AI and the expansion of digital twins within this.
And honestly, even on the note of digital twin, wouldn't that be so cool? Like how many people have said, "Oh, wouldn't it be nice if I could clone myself?" But like that could be an iteration of a digital twin. Like I could get myself an AI bot that I teach how to do my stuff like that I don't want to do, like the reporting, the blah work, the processing documents or whatever it is that I'm not a fan of at the time.
Meetings with your boss.
No. That is all me. That is all me. Okay, part of what I bring to the table is my glowing personality. Okay, we can't sell that out to AI. They can't compete with us.
Okay.
Yeah. What else did you want to talk about before we close out of here?
That's good.
Where did we hit it?
That's good.
Did we hit it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're ready to send out some finished goods and call it.
We're out of here. We're clocking out. Get out of here.
Right.
Scram.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
This is Factory the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future, where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.